welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tracked Before. This time, Preemptive Strike. Preemptive Strike. TNG. It's all been tracked before. This is not a preemptive strike because you probably know what's coming, but it's on Facebook. It's all been tracked before. Spelled just like it sounds. It's all been tracked before. Follow us on Facebook. Lots of fun memes, whatever you call them. They're fun. We got them out there. Hit us all out there. Check us out there. You'll get a laugh. It also lets you know, hey, the show just dropped. Follow us on Facebook. And now you can make a preemptive strike. Preemptive strike, TNG. It's all been tracked before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tracked Before. Your regular hosts are here for the penultimate time for Next Gen.
This is Steven.
And Keith.
Jimmy Jerome. I kind of lied there because this is the penultimate episode of Next Gen, but we have the Journey's End, the Saga of the Next Generation to cover, the special that I chatted you to a link on YouTube for. That's in our next recording. We also have the season 7 wrap-up discussion and the series finale wrap-up discussion. Then 4 films we're going to review, and then Star Trek Picard years later. So, we're getting close to the end. I'm rambling. What are your first impressions of Preemptive Strike?
The question feels premature right now.
Why did you just watch it?
I'm still waking up and just that was also a pun. Thanks.
Well, Keith, I want to do a preemptive strike before you fully wake up.
Yeah, there we go. I thought you were actually going to.
Oh, I'll go ahead and jump in. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I always like Ro. It was good to have her back. We'll get into it more later, but I thought this was a good, it's like, okay, now we're definitely in the home stretch for, they're like, okay, we're going to put the hammer down. We know we only got a couple left. She's back. They're all excited. I'm excited to see her. And then it's weird because it almost feels like a backdoor pilot, which I'm not opposed to, for Ro going, her journey, her adventures or whatever. And then it's morally complicated. And it's also a little bit of crossover with our DS9 world, since we got the Maquis and all that. So I just thought all that combined for a pretty good episode. I was into it. Like the difficult decisions Ro had to make. I thought she was put in a tough spot. Not quite sure it hung the moon, but I think it got close for me.
Nice.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Yeah, she did do some backdoor piloting in this. It was very clandestine. She had to come in through different
the backdoor of the Enterprise Z shield.
Right.
Yeah. So my first impression is it was a very good episode. It seemed to come a little too late for my taste.
Yes.
In terms of while it was a complete story and did have an ending, and was a good send-off for her character. Like you all said, I wanted more. There was never a spinoff proposed for this because she had already turned down the DS9 spinoff. So this was only intended to be a one-off thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's telling that in the novels and in the comic books, she got a number of additional appearances after this. Even though in canon, it will be many years before we get any Ro follow-up. But Ro has appeared in New Trek, and we do get follow-up on this. It's just going to be a long way off. So yeah, I love Ro. I really wish she'd been in. I mean, she was in like the beginning part of season 6, and then disappeared, and then she just came back for this one. And I really wish she was in the show more.
And the rest of the I'll just say the cast, the rest of the Enterprise is like, oh, it's so great you're back, blah, 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 which I think was very sweet. And while we're there, I'll jump in with Perv Corner, 90s style. I think I wrote 90, yeah. So Crusher goes in and kisses Ro, and ostensibly probably on the cheek, but it's shot in a way that suggests we're not sure. And that's why this is Perv Corner.
We know the director is a perv because he's seen it all. You see everything, right? Patrick Stewart directed this
No
episode.
way.
And I'm referencing his extras, his guest spot in extras where he acted real pervy. So
well, and just to keep Perv Corner going, Picard actually does a nice thing where he has her ask Ro to report to the bridge to get her out of that uncomfortable social situation or whatever for her, and then he's like blah blah, and he's like, you look very fit, you look physically fit. I was like, well, that's an interesting comment.
Well, that we can't blame on the director, but it was story by Naren Shankar, told by Renee Echevarria, both key people in Next Gen. So they really have no excuses. And
I don't know
for
if
any
that was supposed
listeners
to-
wondering, Perf Corner is not about to become a regular segment of this podcast.
No, I don't mean it to be, but I do need to call myself out when I go there.
Or
But
Patrick
yeah, but-
Stewart out when his directing goes there, apparently.
Right. Well, and I don't know if I don't know
But it was too late.
if what his comment about her being physically fit was supposed to, because I feel like there's a great part of this episode that almost plays into, there's a thing between, not an actual thing, but an attraction level between those two. We even have the scene where they're acting later in the episode, quote, where they're getting real cozy, and that's Patrick Stewart directing, and that's well, I mean, again, he didn't write the script though. It's in the script. It's supposed to go that way, but
I can see him explaining that too, and then very much that same voice. Couldn't be helped. It was in the script. What could I do? It's right
it was
there.
not my idea. It was in the script.
I think that comment to be fair is the wrong word. Taking the context of the time in 1994, I don't think people would have automatically assumed it was a creepy comment.
No,
and I do think like she did this tactical training, so of course there was a big physicality component.
right.
So he's probably just complimenting her on like, hey, I can tell you did this like really difficult
and
physical
again,
thing. And
I tied it to my own pervy corner, but I feel like it's a legitimate, like, looking good. I mean, not in a.
I bumped on it too. I'm not.
Yeah, I don't think it was a "you look good." I think it was a "you're looking fit. You're looking good."
And then there was another episode later in the or other scene later in the episode that just says it was all pervy, but we'll get to that.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Oh, that was God. That was man. That may be, if you were going to take it from Hang the Moon to Not Quite Hung the Moon, I feel like that scene was a good reason to knock it down a notch. But we'll get to it. At the beginning, Ro is promoted and back on the ship. We didn't even realize she was gone, except that we never saw her. So I guess it reminds me of something the West Wing did later where Ainsley Hayes was like a major part of the story, and then we didn't see her anymore. And then we're like, is she just in her basement office?
That's a perfect analogy.
And then she shows back up a couple of seasons later. They're like, no, she was doing this other thing. I like that there was an explanation and wasn't that we just hadn't seen her. But I do wonder how in the just over a year it's been, she got promoted twice. Because she isn't a lieutenant junior grade. She went from ensign to full lieutenant if you're watching the pips. It wasn't a hollow second pip. It was a solid second pip. So maybe that's something to do with the tactical training that you can like skip through and promotions, or she would have been promoted just before the tactical training and then got promoted again. I don't know, but I'm just saying I thought it was weird she had a double promotion so quickly, especially with her rocky past.
So there is something that jumped out at me that just from the very beginning. It might relate again because of the direction. So her bearing when she walked in was very strange. It was like she was sort of being like piloted by Bill and Ted. Like the gait was just this kind of like a really stiff kind of. I'm not sure if that was supposed to project. I've been working out. I'm or she's uncomfortable in the uniform or something like that. Just there was that very, when as she's walking into was it 10 forward? Where was she? Was that what it was?
It was 10 forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just right up through the door.
I took that as this party was for her, and she's very uncomfortable being the center of attention.
So you did see that though, right?
Oh yeah. She was very stiff in that episode, in that scene. But yeah, I thought especially because then Picard does the whole fake out where he calls her to the bridge, but he's waiting in the hallway to save her. I think that was just about her. And I think that's consistent with her character. Her character would not embrace a party for her. And I appreciate that they let her be her. There were several scenes in this episode where, like, even when she was undercover, where she was being authentically Ro. And I liked that and appreciated that about this episode. Plus, Michelle Farms is just always amazing. But there's a really nice scene where Ro thanks Picard for recommending her for the tactical training. And I know we had a little bit of like a bond between Picard and Ro before, but this episode immediately like hits home that there is a bond between the two of them, just the two of them, that he has been a mentor and supportive influence in our career. And it's important for later in the episode, but it's also really sweet on its own. Like, cool.
I like that we also get into and I can't remember, but I feel like we decided in an episode that she and Riker got it on, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They did like when they were like brainwashed or whatever, but
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, forgot about that.
Maquis, ships. When did they get their own ship design and why? Because isn't their whole thing that they're small and scrappy and they're probably getting ships from other people? So I find it very, I get from a logistical behind the fourth wall, the production reason why they have their own ships. So they're immediately identifiable in a space battle. But really, shouldn't they be in like runabouts that they stole or smaller ships that they stole and outfitted with weapons rather than they've built their own ship design?
Yes.
Yes and no. I can come up with an explanation for that. But first of all, I didn't catch it. First of all, I just want to acknowledge that I didn't realize that.
I'm pretty sure this is the first time we see it. It wasn't in. I don't remember seeing the ship in the DS9 episodes about the Maquis. We will see the same ship design in Voyager, but
so I think the idea would be to be production wise, yes. Also, if they're actually using as a like an actual name, they're actually calling themselves the Maquis. I guess the idea is sort of like a plausible deniability. This is just some organization that cropped up. Look, we have our own stuff. This isn't Starfleet. This isn't these people.
That's a good reason for why Starfleet would want them to have their own ships. What's the reason they create their own ships?
That's what I'm saying. They're from Starfleet. There are people within Starfleet in the Maquis, or former Starfleet, or civilians, and so the idea is to still. It's going through the motions of like here's I'm putting on my little eye mask. Maybe it's me, maybe it's not, but
So I think, are you saying that some of the former Starfleeters would not want their actions to reflect upon Starfleet, so they're being respectful?
Not necessarily respectful, but it's the trying to bury the paper trail, or trying plausible deniability, that sort of thing. To say to produce an organization that is not that.
So it's kind of for Starfleet's protection.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't think they're thinking about Starfleet in that way. I think that it's more like not to protect them, but to separate themselves from that entity.
Oh, okay. As a way to strike it on their own.
Yeah.
Still, though, I don't know that they have the That's the thing. Like, they're portrayed as not having the resources to build their own ship. They're having trouble even getting meg kits. So to build their own ship design and then crank out several dozen of this design seems beyond their capabilities to me. Freedom fighters don't.
Not if you have people helping them from the inside, which is also the implication. And replicating parts is different than.
But a whole ship design. You think they're using Starfleet shipyards to secretly build their own ships?
Replicators.
Replicators can't replicate a whole ship. They replicate parts.
Yeah, it's probably like cosmetic things.
Space IKEA.
Yeah, you haven't sold me on it, Keith. I think I understand what you're saying, but you have not sold me on.
I'd have to put them side by side and go here's this is the difference between this ship and that. I don't know.
I know, but this is supposed to be a very resource poor organization. So I just feel like if you're resource poor, you prioritize, and creating your own ship design is not high on the priority list, I wouldn't think. But
holograms. There we go.
Maybe they just got a fleet of. They went to Avis was selling a fleet of cars, the Avis space car rental service, and they just bought a bunch of them.
Actually, there's something there. I mean, that there it could be that there is some other benefactor who could have ships or have parts for ships, but not medical resources or other kinds of things like that.
They fell off a space truck.
Oh, it could be that too.
Maybe.
Actually,
I think those are plausible. I think those are plausible, making excuses for the canon. I don't because they never establish it.
We do.
It still seems weak.
That's what I do. No, seriously. Again, the implication is that they could be they're right. So they start off the episode talking about how the Maquis are the Admiral, wasn't it?
Admiral Nechayev?
Yeah. She was
returning again. Yay! I love Admiral Nechayev.
So in that conversation, the point was that Picard was drawing out of her, hey, you're more concerned about this than I would expect. What's going on?
Right.
She's talking about how they've been stepping up their game to the point where they're becoming more organized. And so I think that would be like a visual representation of that as well. Again, they could have been stealing things. They could have
well,
had
definitely
some
stolen
help.
things. That's why I would think that their ships would look like stolen ships. But
they call them the Maquis. They steal.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know. Why do they call them the Maquis? Do we know yet? Did they tell us?
wasn't like the fifth column kind of thing. Wasn't it some sort of call to a?
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah, it is. Just to back up, they're headed to the bridge, and Picard's like, "I'd like you at the con, Lieutenant." It's like, "Oh, that's a nice thing." And then they get there and like Ensign Gates, and so Ensign Gates has to leave. Ro gets in there, and she's immediately like, "Yep, I'm on it, long range engines as well." I know we talk about it a lot, these handoffs, but there's never really a handoff. There's never like, "Oh, you know what? It's a little sluggish here, and this button's been hitting. It's beeping, but it'll be blinking, but you don't worry about it. Just tap it a couple times, it'll be fine." That kind of. There's never those kind of conversations. Now I know again we got 45 minutes to do this episode. That doesn't make sense, but from
those are the kinds of resources that Starfleet has. They don't have those kinds of problems.
right.
If we were inside of a Maquis ship, we would hear that sort of conversation over every time when they're.
And I will pull back our curtain just for a second, because for a second when the Maquis showed up, I thought maybe I was watching the wrong episode, because I was like, crossover? I thought that was next week, and it is. But
I have some information on the Maquis because I did a little bit of research here. So they were based on both the French freedom fighters during World War II, which I guess were known as the French Maquis, and the Spanish Maquis during the Civil War. So the Spanish called themselves the Maquis, but both were guerrilla freedom fighters.
Never would have expected that.
Historically. And interestingly enough, the Maquis was specifically created for Star Trek Voyager, so they put them in Next Gen and DS9 to set up Voyager. So by this point, they'd already had Voyager in development, and this was all to help set up Voyager's story. They also point out in this article I'm reading that the original Maquis ship that we see in the pilot of Voyager is called the Valjean. Is it Jean Valjean? Which I really like. Les Miserables reference. So apparently we did see the Maquis fighter in the DS9 two-parter before now.
Okay.
But anyway.
Well, for a second, I thought Bernie Casey was going to show up in this episode, and I was going to get very excited.
No. That would have been cool to have that crossover.
Yeah.
And even though they're created for Voyager, and Voyager will do some development of the Maquis, we're not done with the Maquis and DS9 either. There is still some plot there as well. Obviously, I don't think it's a spoiler to say this is the last Maquis stuff in Next Gen, because, we have the series finale left, and it is not Maquis-centric for some reason. I don't know why. So they're attacking Cardassian ship, but the sensors are reading them as Federation vessels. Again, I believe that. They're trying to hide, and they're trying to do some stuff. Why did the wounded Cardassians get taken to the Enterprise D? Did they not have medical supplies on the Cardassian ship?
Because it sets up that great moment where he's like, "Do you people have experience with Cardassians?" And I was like, "What do you mean, you people?"
And if our friend Golovec, returning guest star Richard Poe, because we've seen him in a number of episodes now, Next Gen and DS9, if he really didn't believe that the humans were capable of treating Cardassians, that begs the question even harder. Why? Yeah. Why did they transport their wounded over if they didn't think they could do anything to heal them?
And I like that Picard touches him when he's like trying to say, "Well, how did you not know this?" He's like, "Well, considering that he's like, well, he's talking about the Cardassian colonials arming themselves. Well, considering they destroyed a Jurian freighter less than a week ago, I would say that your efforts are meeting with limited success." He's like, "Touche, in your face. I'm leaving."
Then a minute later, he's like, he throws it back on him, right? Like he's like, how come you didn't know about this then? You know,
like don't bring that in here.
Yeah, Vic says Starfleet's looking the other way at the Maquis, but I'd say Admiral Nechiyev's words beg to differ. They are not looking the other way. They are dealing with it.
Yeah.
Vic implies that so far they have held back on taking out the Maquis, like as a favor to Starfleet, but if Starfleet doesn't do anything about them, that they're going to step in. I'm like, really? I feel like, I know they're supplying weapons. I guess it's under the table. They're trying to be more covert about it, but I don't know. I know why the Federation's concerned with the treaty. I guess nothing else in the show really convinces me that the Cardassians are worried about the treaty breaking and have to react covertly. I feel like the Cardassians should be just like, hey, we're wiping them out. They're attacking us. We're done. It seems odd that they're not. Nechiyev suggests that Ro infiltrate, which I kind of appreciate that it was her suggestion instead of Picard's suggestion. I think Picard would have chosen to protect Ro. But then we get the very odd moment, and this rubbed me a little bit the wrong way, where Ro basically says she's taking the mission to validate Picard's feelings in her. It's like, seriously, Ro, you need his approval? I know you look up to him. He's kind of a mentor to you, but come on, do it for yourself. Don't do it for his approval. And when has she been that much of a like kowtow to?
Yeah, they were
the
really
man's
hard to make that a bigger deal, I thought, than it was.
I think that the tone of the episode and overall it just struck me as off. Everything felt a little. Well, I guess I had a more negative take than what you were saying. Sort a similar opinion, but just more of a negative bent to it, which is it felt a little rushed, a little thin. As far as everything felt a little too tell not show, for lack of a better word or term, and then just sort of easy. It's sort of like they were like, you know what we're doing. We know you know what we're doing. Let's just, here's what they would say here. Let's get through this hit these beats. And it felt like something that should have been probably an arc that was spread throughout the season. And they just kind of rushed it into one episode. That's probably what it was. And
that is one of my 2 alternate episodes, is this should have been a season-long arc. The other one was a spinoff with Ro. So we've covered both my alternate episodes. I'll just go ahead and cross them off. But I agree with you. I agree with you, Keith.
Roll the credits.
This episode was really good, but there was like a superficiality to it, a little bit lacking of depth that it deserved to have. I'll agree with you there. I feel like if this had been a season 5 episode, and I'm counting season 5 as like the peak of Next Gen, it would have been better written and better developed than this was. Also, at least a 2-parter. This deserved at least a 2-parter.
I agree.
They didn't have time for it, but they deserved it.
Just to go back to Nechayev, she mentions no Valerian canopies this time, Captain. He's like, I thought I was pushed a little, and then she says,
nice.
Just as well, they're extremely fattening. So I appreciate that Admiral Nechayev is trying to watch her weight or stay fit, I should say. Either way, I'm fit. Diet and exercise in this episode early.
Absolutely. And while I'm pretty sure this is Admiral Nechayev's last episode of Star Trek, I don't think she comes back on DS9 after this. The New Frontier book we're reading for our a mid-season special, between season special, features both Admiral Nechayev and Admiral Jellicoe. Jellicoe has been now promoted to Admiral. So we'll get Jellicoe and Nechayev. They're both throughout the New Frontier series as like these competing admirals with competing agendas that both have purview over the captain, and I really love that dynamic. So you'll get a taste of that in New Frontier Book 1.
My next note's a fashion note on Michelle Forbes or Ro. Really, I'm trying to research it here, but
sorry, real quick, I was wrong. Nechayev is going to do one more DS9 appearance at the beginning of season 3.
I'll call this shallow quarter, but it is fashion. Fashion. I love her earrings, and I forgot that a lot of I was reminded when we got in DS9 that a lot of the Bajorans, like the earrings and all that. And then, I hadn't noticed her mole as much before. Michelle Forbes' mole.
Oh, yeah. It's a very prominent mole. I've noticed it every time I see her.
Yeah, and I guess I'd forgotten over a while. And so I guess she's since had it removed.
Oh. I guess I didn't notice in her New Trek appearance last year if it was still there or not.
I learned, it was, the Google search led to some bad places, namely the internet. People complaining about her
Google is a gateway to the internet.
Are you kidding me? Are you really losing your mind over her mole? There's so much other great stuff going on with Michelle Forbes but
I just Googled Michelle Forbes mole Star Trek and immediately get a Reddit post of almost didn't recognize her in New Trek with the Botox and no mole.
Yeah, I mean,
so I guess she did not have the mole restored. I feel like in New Trek they should have put the mole back just to
right.
Yeah. But I guess Ro Lauren could have had the mole removed during her time with the Maquis or after.
True.
Yeah, there's this might be the same one. It's a Reddit one where there's one where the mole is prominent, and then one recent where it's gone. But she looks great.
If you have not watched all of the newer Battlestar Galactica series, Michelle Forbes does an amazing reoccurring role in that.
Okay.
So he did a scene where Rose in the bar, and she walks in, immediately starts making out with Alien, and then Data and Worf walk in 2 seconds later. Like, I know you can't have the time pass because of production and everything, but man, that was the worst like fake out ever. Like the most unconvincing.
Our friends at Fashion It So on Tumblr, they said, well, the caption was, "There's no time to explain." And they said, "I truly wonder if A, this has ever happened in real life, and B, how many people have been punched in the face as a result." I mean, most guys are gonna be like, "Michelle Forbes, come and get it," but still.
Well, I mean, this guy falls in love immediately because in another scene late in the episode, she's like, "Not right now," because she goes back to the bar and he comes back after. Yeah, and I don't know what that actor is, but I really like the small touch of having him return later and try to follow up on it.
Well, and it does give there is a feeling in the episode of like, everything's coming up Ro. Everyone loves Ro. It's like she's putting out the pheromones, whether it's sexual or just, or the old man just being smitten with her kind of and all that stuff. Also, are we on a DS9 set? It feels like a DS9 set. That bar.
Looks like a DS9 set.
Very DS9.
They shared some of that stuff in this time.
It makes sense.
I actually watched the bridge tour, or sorry, the set tour of the Enterprise D that's on this disc of the Next Gen Blu-ray, which this disc ended with this episode. The finale's on its own disc. And they pointed out that the Dr. Crusher's office is a redress of Dr. McCoy's office from the films.
Oh, wow.
And we definitely have noticed Next Gen sets that were original series film sets redressed. I'm pretty sure that Next Gen and DS9 shared some like planet side set pieces. And I assume Voyager does the same. In terms of the kiss, though, like the Greatest Generation guys, I've already listened to part of their episode on this. I haven't listened to their DS9 review yet. They're going to do next week. And they said that when Data and Worf come in, they should be like, "Hey, have you seen the Bajoran who came in so recently the door is still open for having come in?" And oh, she already talked to people and left? Okay, we buy that, even though the door was still open from her coming in. It was definitely rushed for the TV, experience, but yeah. Then we get the guy, his name is Santos, William Thomas Jr., who is best known for this role, the film Bruce Almighty, 2 episodes in The West Wing, Surviving Christmas, and an episode of Cop Rock. He goes up to Ro and stuns her immediately.
Is back again. Also, he's from Columbus. He was born in Columbus. He just passed away, I think, in 2020. He also was Vanessa Huxtable's fiance on The Cosby Show.
There was also a the only other time I think I will bring up this episode of The Greatest Generation that I was in the middle of listening to when we started recording this, where they were like, "Yeah, we need the scene where that other Maquis officer, Kalita, comes in. She's like, oh, it's fine. He stunned her. It's fine. He's not going to rape her or anything. It's cool if he just pulls this woman out of here that he stunned without anybody touching anything."
It's a rough.
Like, does he routinely show up and stun women and then take them home to his apartment? That's really bad.
That's a good question. Yeah,
that falls apart really quick upon examination.
It's not a good bar, I think. That's the question, or that's the answer.
Yeah.
I mean, sounds pretty good to me. Where do I go?
Oh man.
Well, let me tell you, I can probably tell you some places in town.
We're back to Perp Corner.
Yeah. Well, as I was saying, actually, that's not the name of the bar, but it's yeah.
Nice.
Quote unquote name. It's one of its nicknames. They shut it down. That's Jack's up on Summit. They shut that down. Anyway.
So when Ro wakes up from her stun beam, she mostly tells the truth as she's asking to join. Like, I think that's part of what sells her story and why she's such a good choice for this assignment, even though she's also really risky for this assignment, is her background lends you to absolutely believe she joined with the Maquis.
Yeah.
Which she does, but
yeah, I mean, so it's easier for her to get into. I'm down with what you guys are doing. Yeah,
that's funny.
And she's a badass.
Yeah. Then she meets the old guy.
Yeah.
His name is Macias, something like that. Played by John Franklin Robbins, who's best known for the movie Emma, The Golden Compass, Ivanhoe, 8 episodes of Ivanhoe, and this role, 124 credits. His last credit was the librarian in The Golden Compass in 2007. He died in 2009. He just feels to me like he is supposed to be another version of Picard, like a slightly looser version, because the parallels are so strong. This is also the first mention of Hasperat, which will be mentioned many, many more times in Deep Space Nine, surprisingly enough. And once or twice in Voyager, and once in an episode of Star Trek Discovery, Adira Tal mentions that they knew how to cook a mean Bajar and Hasperat. But
it made me hungry, and actually there's a recipe. There's probably several, but I found at least one recipe for Hasperat.
Did you?
Yeah, out online.
I assumed it was like horseradish.
I'm not sure what the special spice is in it, but for this, it's just essentially two tortillas wrapped together to create. They went with avocado, Monterey Jack cheese, and some spinach, a cup of hot pickled vegetables. So that's
on food.com. I see right now.
Yeah.
All right.
Then,
I mean, is this
red onions and some cream cheese?
Is this somehow based on what they actually used for the production?
This is because somebody decided to make it up. Yeah.
And foodreplicator.tumblr.com has you using cabbage, vinegar, and hot chilies.
Okay.
To do it. But either way, I think from the look of it, yeah, it's definitely some type of greenery, definitely some type of spicy. I just assumed it was like a horseradish that you add in, but something like that. It's a wrap.
I wrote space burrito.
It's a wrap.
WonderlandRecipes.com has kimchi as the spice. Spicy.
Oh, that'd be good too. Yeah.
Either way, still sounds good. Ro offers to steal medical supplies from the Enterprise, and they agree to send her with Kalita as her chaperone. We didn't mention Kalita yet, played by Shannon Cochran, best known for The Ring, the original film. Star Trek Nemesis, where she plays a Romulan. 2 episodes of DS9 as one episode is Kalita. I didn't realize Kalita returned, but she is in a season 3 episode of DS9, and then she plays a totally different character in a season 6 episode of DS9, and the film Preemptive Strike.
In one episode of Seinfeld, she's in the parking garage. She plays a woman named Sheila, who's just a passerby on the street while they're having the fight over the titular parking space. First, she likes George, and then within 2 or 3 minutes, she hates George or doesn't like George. So, yeah. So. Yeah.
I mean, she has a ton of one-off guest spots on everything from Grey's Anatomy to Gilmore Girls to Desperate Housewives to The Office to Fringe.
Yeah.
So many spots. But yeah, I didn't realize she's going to return as her character for another episode of DS9. That makes me excited. I really want to see.
Oh, yeah.
And we're like 8 or 9 episodes away. Yeah, I love that. It's very apparent to me that the Enterprise doesn't know what she's up to. I was wondering as she talks about stealing, like if she's sending them secret communications, but clearly not, because Picard's like, oh, okay, Ro might be on the ship. Let's just let him through and let them steal what they're going to do. And then let's make a show of chasing them, even though we don't see that.
Right.
I did want to know, though, the one thing that really rubbed me wrong about that scene, because I totally get how she couldn't contact Picard and she sneaks in and Picard realizes. All that made sense, and I loved that it wasn't prearranged. But then there's this thing where her and Kalita, it's so urgent. But then they get the supplies and they all stop and admire them for several moments before they leave.
Yeah. That's some pinpoint transporting too. That we're seeing more and more of. Yeah, because I mean it feels like an inside job. Like this is where they're going to be. Where you get them.
It does, but I buy that Ro has the knowledge. Doesn't need to be an inside job.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is technically an inside job.
Yes,
that's true.
And they allow her because there was not a weak point in the shields where she said there was. You got that part of it, right? That she just was like taking on faith that they'd understand it was her and let her through.
Right.
Yep.
That's a big, bold move, and I love the cojones Ro has in making that bold move.
Well, she did send them a message too.
Until after that.
No, I mean during that. They got some sort of. They're saying it's sending some sort of.
You're right, but it was like as it was happening. It wasn't like prearranged. Yeah.
Right.
The old guy, Marcius.
Sorry. It kind of
is sure. Yeah, George Santos, who's running for his seat again. He's going to try to reclaim his seat in Congress that he was just expelled from. He's running for the seat.
What are you talking about? Real life?
Yeah. George Santos announced during the State of the Union, because he attended, because expelled members can still attend. That doesn't ban them. So he's allowed to go to Congress and sit in the House of Reps, and he was there for
Okay,
it.
but
And during the speech, he tweeted he's running for his seat.
Wow.
right, but I
To
mean, are you
reclaim this-
saying that the name reminded you of the actor, or is this really the
No,
actor?
I was actually trying to talk about something else, but I got derailed
Okay.
by the name Santos. Sorry. I just can't believe that guy had the gall to sit in the House of Representatives during the State of the Union. And then what's more, to announce he was running to reclaim his expelled seat during the State of the Union. Anyway, doesn't matter.
He's
Neither
not
here nor there.
lacking in gall.
I'm sure he's in jail by the time this episode goes live. As if this country has justice for white men. Anyway. The old guy, Marcius, when he is laying it on so thick that he's sure she's one of them and can read her heart. I get that from a writing standpoint, it's just that Ro is so sympathetic. He can see that in her. But I kept waiting, having not seen this episode before, and I definitely hadn't. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop that he knew she was a spy, and he was just going to guilt trip her into admitting it until she was like, okay, I'm a spy.
That's what I thought we were going to get to that point too.
Yeah, we never got the chance because, he dead. He's nothing anymore.
Well, I knew he was going to die as soon as he started talking about the great party they were going to have.
Oh, yeah.
He's been thinking about it a long time. It's pretty much as soon as I can retire, we're going to have a celebration. Hasperat, blueberry pie, wine, and they're going to dance.
He's going to play some music, and they're going to celebrate. And then they decide to celebrate nothing.
I wrote he was going to party. They were going to party like it's $24.99.
I mean, at this point, it's not $24.99 yet. We see $24.99 in Star Trek Picard. So would they be partying like it's $23.99? I don't know. I guess.
I don't know if 2500 rolls off the tongue as much as 2000.
Well, we see both $24.99 and $2,500 in Star Trek Picard. So we're gonna see those years.
All right. Well, that's what. Unfortunately, Mascius won't be there with us.
No, he's dead. He does not. Spoiler: he does not appear in Star Trek Picard.
So there's something we skipped past for the perv corner or whatever it was. It felt really awkward. The hand on the back.
Yeah,
we saw that, or I guess to clarify for the audience who might be listening to this conversation, who knows, Mascius placing his hand, or actually caressing her back as they were walking away to show we have established some sort of closeness now, and I'm being affectionate or probably fatherly is what they were going for, but it just felt, and this is where we're seeing the Cardassians in the cloaks.
I mean, Picard basically did the same thing in another scene.
Yeah, it's just
Just to go back to I guess we're still on Mascius when he's talking about the celebration, playing the Balaclavian. Then we start hearing a flute recorder type instrument. My thought was, I know we've seen Spock playing the space guitar harp or whatever, and a few other instruments, but it feels like in the 24th century, everyone's playing a flute or a variation of flute out in space.
I mean, it's just the hot instrument at the moment because Picard has the flute, the risky in there.
Exactly, right. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Ron reports back to Picard, who plans a whole ambush and talks about how much he counts on her. Ro in that conversation mentions both the Uridians and Deep Space Nine. Both I got excited about. The Uridians wasn't even aware that was an alien race in Star Trek when we started this rewatch. And they mention it so much in TNG and DS9 in these couple of years. I'm like, how did I not remember the Uridians were a race? It's so heavy. It's that mask that James Cromwell wore that they've used like 3 more times.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we have seen Uridians so much. It's like they're the new traitor alien race because you don't want to get into all the complications of the Ferengi.
So
Mascius likes her dad's food and plays her dad's instrument. I also started to wonder if he'd done his research on her and this was still part of his guilt trip of like making sure I'm going to manipulate her into joining the Maquis. Like, you can even argue maybe his death. I would not have been surprised if at the end of the episode we revealed his death was faked and this whole thing was designed to manipulate her into joining the Maquis.
Yeah.
That's not the only episode I want, but I could have seen that as a possibility.
Speaking of, while we're in there, but why doesn't Picard wear a wig when he's undercover?
Yeah.
I mean,
he should have worn the toupee he auditioned for the part in.
Right.
Or a hat.
Yeah.
Or a hat.
Yeah. to cover his ears. But I am impressed with Picard's focus when they're in the little booth, that he's able to focus on business. And by business, I mean the business of being a starship captain and what they're doing in the middle of all that nonsense. And then he's
She is all over him, man.
I don't have money. I'm sorry, I don't have that kind of money.
I mean, I believe Patrick Stewart's not enough of a. I believe Patrick Stewart is not enough of a perv to like, hey, I'm just designing this whole scene so Michelle Forbes can feel me up. And yet that kind of came across as what it felt like.
I would have been more bothered if I wasn't so turned on by the scene.
I'm about to say envious, but I guess that's
I enjoyed it. I thought it was I mean, at first I'm like, oh, that's cool. They're so close together. And I'm like, oh, that's what's going on here. I mean, they're playing it up, obviously.
She's pretending to be a prostitute. Yeah. And he's a John.
Yeah.
It took me out of the scene. It was so sexual. And just Picard, Ro being all over Picard. I agree with you, Steven. I was not complaining, but it took me out of the scene.
Yeah.
It felt like the porn parody of this scene.
Yes.
Before that, though, we had the Cardassians in the robes and the shootout. That so felt like an Old West shootout with like people falling off the platforms and everything.
Yep.
I mean, when Mascius dies, he says, when an old fighter like me dies, someone's always stepped up to take his place. I mean, at that point, I feel like at that point, they're telegraphing what Ro's about to do.
Even his eye work in that scene was like like boring. Like you are someone takes over
talking about you.
And that combined with the scene where she's all over Picard and putting the money on the table and all of that stuff, that felt like they're both manipulating her so freaking hard. I'm like, just let her make a decision. You don't need to lay it on. Picard even threatens her, and that bothers me.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, you're going to throw away everything you worked for, and if you don't do this, I'm going to court-martial you. And he's like, well, fine. She's like, fine, I'll do it. He's like, okay, fine, but I'm sending Riker. Like, that was way too heavy-handed.
Yeah.
And it felt so creepy on Picard's part.
Yeah.
I didn't get to read it, but I just saw the headline at the beginning of the story, essentially where somebody's like, Picard's the bad guy in this episode. He sells her a bill of goods and then turns it on her, and then he's going to court-martial her for sabotage. Unbelievable.
Right. No, seriously, that scene left me turned off on Picard. This is where, so I keep coming back. I've mentioned this before in this podcast, that a main theme of Star Trek Picard, the 3 seasons they did, were that Picard has, to quote to paraphrase an admiral, he has effing hubris. One of Star Trek's first F-bombs. Because he always thinks he's right. And this is one of those times where there is actual complexity to the situation, and he is so blinded by what he thinks is right that he cannot see the other side. And I really, for a long part of this Next Gen rewatch, I was not getting where Star Trek Picard got that, except as like a large concept. But as we get to the end, I'm seeing exactly where they got it from. These were fans of Next Gen that were like, yeah, but he's got some flaws, and this is what his flaw is.
What do you think?
I was just going to say that that's kind of what I was also thinking about when I said that felt like somebody traveled back in time to make this episode just to make this the follow-up, because it was almost word for word lifted from these interactions. Like, oh, I don't remember this at all. Oh, okay, this is why this is such a huge plot point in this other thing. What else? But again, it feels like the character is being sandbagged by the production reasons for the writing, the rushedness of it. It was all, again, the whole tell not show thing, where it's like, I don't feel like he would have needed to make that threat if it had been spread out further. But also, it seems I almost took it as a positive in the sense that he was trying to be upfront. I mean, another figure could have tried to sugarcoat things and tried to play along and, oh, it's okay if blah blah blah, I'm your friend, this is, well, we're buddies here, I understand what you're conflicted, let's just do blah blah, go, nothing's going to happen to you if you step down right now, that kind of thing, and then maybe hung the punishment later. But it's sort of like him being up. I have to be upfront all the time. I have to be honorable. This is the truth.
Honorable.
Yes.
Well, this is sorry, I know I said I wasn't going to mention anymore, but the Greatest Gen guys talk about that this is considered one of the great episodes of Next Gen. This is like considered really high up there on the list.
Huh.
And I think, Keith, you've hit upon that while they didn't travel back in time and make it to inform it, this episode was highly influential on the people creating New Trek that were like,
that makes
there
sense.
were pulling things that we were dissatisfied with that didn't quite gel for us in episodes we love. And let's explore them.
That's cool. We're pretty close to the end, so I'll just ask you guys that last shot, which I like the shot that the director of the episode, Patrick Stewart, came up with, where the camera kind of does like a from behind
Picard glare,
come around to the front.
Yeah.
And you look at his face. And so my question to you guys would be, what's going through Picard's mind at that point? What's it? Because I thought we were going to
like, I'm a freaking killer.
Like the Native American crying by the side of the highway because he sees litter kind of thing for Picard, but I thought we'd see something else there. But so is he like, yeah, I screwed this up, or I'm mad at her, or
I think he's mad at her.
Yeah.
And I know New Trek influences my opinion, but I think he blames her entirely and takes no personal regret for it.
So he's in the I can't believe she screwed me over like this.
Yes, absolutely. At least that's the way it's going to be played later. But
I think that's where I land too, because I was expecting something else, but something.
Yeah. Role pulling the phaser on Riker and exposing Starfleet to her compatriots. I feel like maybe modern sensibility, but I saw that coming. But also it was a cool moment. What I love most about it, though, well, first of all, Picard orders her under arrest, which is a high tension moment, even though I knew she was getting away. I want to know, did you guys know she was getting away, or did you think this might end with her getting hauled in for court martial?
I felt like she was gonna get away.
I thought she was turning herself in at first. I'd forgotten how things played out from, again, the future retelling of things, but I'd remembered, or I didn't remember well enough to realize exactly how those beats were going to hit. It felt like she was stepping up to say, I can't do this, but I'm still, I'm letting them go and I'm turning myself in. And she even said something that almost sounded like something like that, something to that effect. It felt like, I don't remember the exact wording.
And maybe I'm overblowing this, but when she first sits on the bridge, Riker comes over like, oh, hey, he knew she was back, but he's kind of like, oh, cool. And he does his Captain Morgan's thing while he's talking to her. And then and that made me think, obviously we talked about they had some kind of past. And so I thought when she pulled the phaser out, there was, in my mind, I was going through a whole thing of like, Riker's got to be like, I can't believe you're doing this. I thought we were cool. Also, you're serious. And I think Rose also like, I also know we had a thing we have a relationship of some kind. And I am serious about this. And I think he's surprised, but not surprised.
Yeah, I really like the way they played that. Now that you mentioned it, as you were saying, it was very much a lack of a better term, human response to the situation. It's like he acknowledged the complexity of all that just in his face, his tone. It was like, okay, I get why you're doing this. I know it's not personal. I know you're not really going to hurt me, but we got to do this. And okay, take care of yourself. Yeah,
that and the last scene and the Captain Morgan scene. Love Jonathan Frakes and what he does with Riker in this episode. I mean, not like I don't in a lot of other episodes, but especially here because he doesn't have a lot of the time. And also, I think that bathrobe thing he's wearing, that's got to make you feel pretty comfortable and like I can handle anything, baby. So I think he's also even kind of like, come on, I'm wearing this bathrobe. Come on, I'm looking good. You're not going to do this. So, but and I did enjoy that bathrobe look.
Hey, look at my friggin' earring. You're not going to.
Fashion is so called him Obi-Wan Riker.
I get that look. Yeah. I really liked that while Picard was so I'm peed off at her, Riker was like, take care of yourself. I get it. Yeah. And I love that so much. I mean, I feel like I don't want to spoil anything. We're going to get into something next season on Deep Space Nine that this is going to be relevant again.
All right.
And that's all I'm going to say. But I really love that there's an alternate take in this scene. of Riker understanding why she's doing what she's doing and not being mad about it.
Yeah.
I mean, he even says, Ro feels guilty because she tells Riker to tell Picard that she's sorry.
Yeah.
He is just like, okay, but when Riker gives Picard the report, which first of all, him holding it out and like when he's well out of Picard's reach, almost as if he expects Picard to get up and then he eventually puts it down. I feel like Riker sides with Ro in that final scene.
I do too.
And I love that. That is absolutely phenomenal that they allowed that in the middle of this. Again, a thin, we should have been explored further. That does not pay off in New Trek, unfortunately. But man, it was such a good, I don't know. I can't even explain necessarily in words why I loved it so much, but that was a brilliant choice to let Riker side with her a little bit.
And I mean, and he literally says, I think I want to should let you down. But then he's just the way he says, here's my report, and sets it down and looks and everything, just really doing a lot with a little there. I thought it was great. So
this, to me, this is one of Jonathan Frakes' best moments in the entire series. Yeah, I don't want to oversell it. This is peak. Yeah. This is some of his best work. Doing little, because so little means so much in this moment.
Those I have no more notes.
No,
other than my alternate episode, which is the back. I just wanted to see the actual pilot rather than the backdoor pilot for the Ro series.
I mean, I wish there would have been. Yeah. I had one more note, which was my fashion note. Thank you. Ro's new haircut. I liked her old haircut better, but she had a whole new haircut for this episode.
Yep, which just made me look at her even more intensely. But
I mean, I love Michelle Forbes.
Yeah, me too.
I kind of liked her when I was younger. I really like her now.
Yeah, and I know in a lot of ways this is she had her sexual moments in this scene, but I just think we've talked about this before. She's somebody you can't help but watch whatever she's doing. Like I'm into whatever you're talking about.
Michelle Forbes is a fine actress who is compelling and amazing with her performance.
Yes, there we go. That's what
that's what you were trying to get to, Steve, and I was trying to help you out.
Like you said, the throwaway line of "not tonight" is it's very funny in the middle of this very serious episode.
Oh my God, I love that they added that one moment of levity.
Yeah.
To have the alien come back and try to, man, yeah. Anyway, let's get to the rankings. What was your annoyance in this episode?
You alluded to these guys a little bit, but the Cardassians that kill our guy Mashus, they just seem. I'm just annoyed they showed up, but two, it was just, I guess I'm just disliking the bad guys in the episode, but yeah, I didn't like them. I like the other Cardassians actually in the episode, but I didn't like these guys. They were standard issue.
Yeah. What kind of outfit are you running here? Those Cardassians.
Yes.
What is this?
Them I loved.
I thought long and hard about my annoyance and couldn't come up with one of people that were actually in this episode. So I chose to go with Guinan for not showing up to Ro's party that's in her bar.
That's a fair one.
I mean, it's not Whoopi Goldberg's fault.
We just didn't see her. She could have been there. We just didn't see it.
She wasn't there. They messed with her bar in a way she would have never allowed. I'm just guessing. I'm going to choose to be, even though I bet Whoopi Goldberg wasn't even invited to be in this episode, I'm going to choose Guinan as my annoyance because she was not at the party in her establishment and not in the final season at all. And that bugs the heck out of me. I know we're going to get her in the first movie coming up, but it bugs the heck out of me.
I'm going to go with the makeout alien. He should. I mean, I get maybe he picked up on what was going on, or maybe he just whatever. But
he
still,
did not. He was totally oblivious. And I thought about him. I considered him, but I had a really hard time faulting a man that Michelle Forbes just grabbed and made out with, that he wanted to make out with her some more. I would have wanted to make out with her some more too. Third quarter.
He's not given a name in the transcript, at least.
What are we having a drink with?
I thought about Kaleida, but I'm going with Ro. I mean, come on.
Ro is the only choice. I of course am choosing Ro, especially because as much as we are conditioned to side with Picard in this falling out, I think Ro's betrayal is extremely sympathetic. It does not immediately lend itself to hating Ro, and it was hard for her to do. So I think she did it because she thought it was the right thing, and I don't necessarily think she's wrong. So I will go have a drink with her and commiserate over what she gave up and the sacrifices she made to do the right thing. I still view her as a hero character at the end of this episode.
Something I should have expressed before. It felt like she was actually being railroaded through the whole thing. I mean, it's like they practically like shoved her into being recruited. So
I'm gonna go ahead and add a third alternate episode. Sort of. Had this been a season-long arc, like I had suggested earlier as an alternate episode, how cool would it have been if Ro was sympathetic enough to convince Starfleet to be sympathetic and not just write them off? Like, first of all, how much agency would that have given her character? If she was a lead this season and we get to follow her through this whole thing and she actually changed minds and made a difference. In the novels, she's the leader of the Maquis and does make a difference in events. But we'll never see that in canon, right? All we get is a little bit of her in Star Trek Picard years later that deals with this, but it doesn't deal with her activities in the intervening time that much. And I just feel like if we had given her more to do, and you can partly blame Michelle Forbes for not being willing to take a lead on Deep Space Nine, because maybe had she been willing to take that lead, they could have shown this sympathetic character, because Kira, as similar as she is, has some major differences, and Maquis sympathy is not one of her things, whereas Ro, it makes a lot more sense for her to be sympathetic to Maquis. I don't know. It feels like a road not taken that would have been really cool to explore, is through this character, if we see her week to week and love her so much. And I think it's a huge testament that we haven't seen her in a year and a half, and we're still like, oh, we sympathize with her, we get her. She made us care about the Maquis. And by the end of this episode, if you still write the Maquis off as being completely wrong and don't have any sympathy for them, you either don't have a soul or aren't paying attention, or just like authoritarian leaders.
You're right.
This is the first time in Star Trek where I'm saying Starfleet is the man, and maybe sometimes you go against the man.
I don't know if you caught that you came up with a title there inadvertently.
No, I didn't.
The Row Not Taken.
Ah!
That could be the alternate novel.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
Keith! Now I want to add a character to Radio Hour named Ro just so I can use that title. I love having you on here. You always earn your place, but you have just justified your presence for multiple seasons with that comment.
Yeah.
Keith, who are you having a drink with?
Oh, wow. I'd say Riker. I think that's
Good choice.
this one.
Good call.
Good choice. I mean, Riker did so much with the small screen time he had. Again, Jonathan Frakes might be his best performance of the series.
I don't know about that. I mean,
No, I'm
Now we gotta
not
hear about
kidding.
Shades of Grey again.
Screw you. I'm sorry. I know you were being funny, and it is funny. But if I took that seriously for half a second, my genuine reaction would be "screw you."
Oh, no.
I don't really feel that way, Steven. I'm sorry.
No,
I don't hate you. Ranking the episode, I think in this very weak final season, we need to go towards the top, despite some major flaws. And I think Keith has been absolutely correct in selling us on some of the flaws of the episode. Let's start with Jesus.
I remember that one.
Let's start with thine own self.
There's some things I liked about it, actually, but
Me too. I would put it above thine own self. I'll just jump right out and say.
yeah, I mean, yeah.
Above that is Parallels.
We're getting closer.
Not above that, though. I wouldn't put it above that. I mean, I would put it above that.
I would be torn on it. I'll defer in that case, but
I think
I
I'd
might stop
go
there.
above.
Yeah, I'm slightly torn too.
Biased, but yeah,
I'm slightly torn too, Keith. But yeah, I think we're going up. Above that is Pegasus. I honestly think this deserves to go below Pegasus, above Parallels.
I would have put it below Parallels, but yes.
what would be the next one above the Pegasus?
Lower Decks.
Perseus.
Yeah,
Sorry.
And if you consider this above Lower Decks, we're gonna have some fighting words.
No, these are very good though.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that
For a lackluster final season, just going through these.
Well, here's the thing: if we put it above Parallels below Pegasus, it's in third place for the season. Lower Decks is number 1.
Oh, okay. All right. So we are upper.
We are
okay.
very close to the top.
Okay. Yeah.
But this episode had some definite weak points, so I certainly don't want to put it at the top. Are we good with third place
yeah.
below Pegasus, above Parallels?
Yeah. I can go with that.
Okay. Keith, you cool with that?
Well, as I said, I'd go lower, but yeah, that's just fine.
You'd go just like one spot lower?
Probably.
Okay. Sweet crossover! IMDb has a very short synopsis, thankfully. Kira and Bashir find themselves in an alternate universe.
All right.
Until then, live long!
But not on this series.
That's already been tricked. It's too late.
No,
They've already tricked everything.
the TNG.
We've seen it all, except for the finale!
Yeah, I should have saved that one. I'll forget by then. Who knows?
It's All Been Done presents.
Who's got the time?